Tax Preparer Tips for Tax Season 2022. Hello, my name is Ruth Agbeloso. Thank you so much for visiting my channel. If this is your first time, please go ahead and subscribe, like this video, and share it with your friends. If you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back. Please go ahead and like, share, do all those wonderful things. On this channel, I discuss all things financial. I discuss making money, saving money, investing money, and more. So you're gonna wanna come back over and over to hear what I have in store for you. I am a financial coach, and it's my job to help you get from point A to point B in your financial journey. So if you think that financial coaching may be right for you, go ahead and send me a message and let me know, and let's see whether or not we'd be a good fit to work together. In today's video, I'm having a chat with my colleague and friend, Annette Harris from Harris Financial Coaching. She's gonna come and talk to us about tips that we should know about before we file our tax returns this year, 2022. There are some things that have changed, and I really want us all to be prepared for what's ahead of us if you haven't done your taxes already. So without further ado, Annette Harris.
Hi, Ruth. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today to talk about this very exciting topic.
I am happy to have you on today. When we think about filing taxes, usually excited doesn't really come into the equation, but as usual, when we get together, it's always a great time. And we really want to make sure that our community is prepared for this tax season, since there's some changes and different nuances that they need to be aware of. So before we begin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement with the whole tax preparing thing?
Absolutely. So I am a volunteer tax preparer. Last year, I volunteered with the United Way's Real Sense program. And this year, I am volunteering with AARP's Tax Aid program. So with the Tax Aid program, I file taxes for low-income individuals and also elderly individuals as well.
Awesome. I love what you do for the community. That's so helpful because so many people need that extra assistance when it comes to filing their taxes. So let's go ahead and dive right in. My first question that I have for you is, when do we file? When is a good time to file? I know that some people are saying March, April, so when is the right time to file?
The right time to file is as soon as possible, as soon as you have all of your documents. Typically, you have your documents by January 31st, but as soon as you have them all, that's the best time to file. However, you do want to file before that April 18th deadline. As long as you file before that, you're good to go and you won't be subject to any penalties. But again, as soon as possible.
Okay, awesome. And one of the things that I do as a financial empowerment coach is I empower women to ask questions before they work with a financial professional. I feel like it's important to have some questions to ask to make sure they're getting the best service for their money, or even if it's a volunteer situation, but they know what they're getting into. So what are some questions a person should ask when they go to see their tax preparer?
Absolutely. I totally agree on asking the questions because you want to ensure that you have a legitimate tax preparer and that they have your best interests at heart when you file your taxes. So one of the first questions that I encourage people to ask is to ask that tax preparer, do they have a preparer tax identification number? So it's called the PTIN for short. So if they have that PTIN number, that lets the individual know that they have done the required IRS training and that they are legally authorized to file taxes on individuals' behalf. The other question is, what is your rate for filing my tax return? Is it a fixed fee or is it an hourly rate? So if once you understand these fees, you can know what you're going to have to pay out of pocket for them to file your tax return. What you would like to do is avoid those tax preparers that will charge you a percentage of your tax refund. So if your tax refund is $5,000 and they say, I want to charge you 25% of your tax refund, you want to try and avoid those. Go to those that have that fixed fee or that determined hourly rate that you're going to pay for your tax refund.
Okay, that's good information. Do you have any more?
Yes, absolutely. You want to ask them if they're going to e-file your tax refund. If they are filing more than 10 tax returns a year, they're required by the IRS to e-file your tax return. It's the safest way for you to get your money. It's quick, and you already know that it's going to be directly deposited into one of your accounts. It's faster than that paper return that can take up to 6 to 8 weeks of you receiving your tax refund. The other question you want to ask is, are you going to be available after tax season is over? So in case you're audited or if you have questions about your tax refund, are they going to be there for you after you file your tax refund?
Okay, awesome. Those all sound like really great questions. So what sort of documents do people need to bring in order to get their taxes prepared?
Okay, I'll go over a couple of general documents because there's a lot of different situations. The most common document is the W-2 from your employer. So you want to bring in that W-2. And then if you're retired, you want to bring in a 1099-R as well. And then after that, that's those different sources of income. You want to look at a 1099-G if you were unemployed at any time throughout the year, because that's considered income as well. And then you have the other 1099s that you have for your tuition if you were a student or if you had interest or dividends as well. So you want to bring in those documents. Basically, if it says 1099 in front of it, you want to bring in those documents, and the tax preparer can help you determine whether or not you need to file those documents when you file your tax return. The other documents, which are kind of least common, are any gambling income that you have. So if you had gambling income, you want to bring those in, and also any gambling losses. So some of those losses that you had can offset the gambling income that you had. And then you also want to think about if you had any debts that were written off. So if you had a credit card payment and you weren't able to pay it, you want to bring that in because that's considered income if they canceled your debt. So that's called canceled debt. The other two documents that are most recent over the last 2 years is the economic stimulus payment. So if you receive that economic stimulus payment throughout the year, you want to bring in that document because it shows how much you received and it helps expedite your return. Because if you don't bring it, it could delay your return. And then finally, you want to bring in that advanced child tax credit if you received it as well, because that can help you with filing your return. If you did receive that child tax credit, you want to ensure that you bring in that document so that you don't get additional income when you file your taxes.
Okay, thank you. Those are some good ones. So what happens if you can't find a document, specifically W-2s? Because I've been hearing about some people who didn't get a W-2 from their employer, and they're wondering, like, what do they need to do next?
So if you have not received your W-2 from your employer, you can go to your HR department or your payroll department and have them reprint another W-2 for you. And that way you can file your tax return. So if you don't have your W-2, you can go to your employer, your HR department, or your payroll department and ask them to reprint your W-2. That's the easiest way to get it. And then if they have it online, you can also go online and receive it from them. A lot of companies now have that where you can download your documents directly from them. If you have not received it from your HR or payroll department, you also want to contact the IRS if they are not issuing you a W-2 as well, because if you've earned wages, you are required to have that W-2. A couple of the other documents, like I mentioned before, are the 1099s. So if you lost that 1099, whatever it was, you want to go to that organization's website because you aren't currently working for that employer, so it's not going to be as easy for you to retrieve those documents. So you can go to the tax documents section of the website, download a copy of your 1099 that you received. And then finally, if you've lost your tax return from the previous year, you can go to the IRS's website and download a tax transcript. Typically, when you file your tax return, they ask you for your previous year's adjusted gross income. And if you don't know that or have your tax return on hand, you can go to the IRS's website, register for your tax transcript, and you can see previous year's tax filing history on how you filed your taxes and all of the information that you input in when you filed your tax return.
Wow, that's good information. I thought you could only see the previous year. I didn't know that you could see multiple years. So that is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So what are some issues that you are seeing as you're helping people with their taxes this year?
Absolutely. The most common one is that people are not bringing in that economic stimulus statement or that advanced child tax credit. With that, if you don't bring that document in, or if you don't know how much you received, it can delay your refund. So try and research that. If you don't have the letter, even having a copy of your bank statement that shows how much you received for that economic stimulus payment can help us file your tax return and help you get it back within 21 days. That's the average processing time right now. So trying to do that research and find out how much you received or where that document is for your economic stimulus payment. The other one is individuals aren't bringing their spouse with them. So if you're filing a joint tax return, once everything is input and your return is printed, your spouse is required to sign off on that tax return. So otherwise, we can't file it for you, or it's going to be delayed until your spouse is available to sign that tax return. The other one is just not having those documents. So again, if you can't find those documents, having all those documents available prior to coming to file your tax return can help you get your money as soon as possible. Or, if you have to pay, understanding what you have to pay. And then finally is the dependency status. So if you have dependents, you need to bring your Social Security card so that we can verify that this is your actual dependent and that you're authorized to claim them on your tax refund. And then finally, it's the dependency status. So if you have dependents that you are claiming on your tax return, bringing their Social Security card can help us verify that it is your actual dependent and that you're authorized to claim them on your tax return.
Awesome. Thank you for those. Now, you mentioned the stimulus payments, and one of the things that I heard is that the IRS actually makes mistakes. And so sometimes those numbers aren't adding up between what you actually got and what was on the letter. So what do you do in a situation like that?
The first step is to do your research. So if you don't think that number is accurate, check your bank statement. See what you actually received as a direct deposit on your bank statement. There's times where they would have deposited into an old checking account or savings account that you don't use. So verifying where your deposit actually went so you can verify the amount that they have on that letter. You also want to work, if you were married and someone else was receiving that refund with you, working with them to see if they actually received the amount that's on that letter or a portion of the amount that's on that letter. After you've done all your research and you've checked your bank accounts, you want to reach out to the number that's on the letter, and the IRS will start a claim on your behalf and start to research to see what you actually received for your stimulus payment. You want to do this before you go and file your tax return so that you don't run into any of those delays with receiving your refund.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for that information. Another thing that you mentioned is dependents. Now, one of the things that I'm hearing from some women, and I'm sure this happens to men, is that, after they've divorced, or maybe they were never married, but they share children with someone else, and that other person claims the children without permission. So what do they do in that situation?
So when this occurs, the IRS is going to reject your return, and they're going to say that someone else has claimed that dependent. So the next steps on your part is to file a paper return. A couple of months later, the IRS is going to reach out to you to say, hey, someone else claimed the dependent on your return. Can you prove to us that this is your dependent for tax filing purposes? Your part in that is to provide the IRS with proof that it is your actual dependent. If that's a divorce decree, if it's doctor's notes, or if it's school records, these are documents that you can provide to the IRS to prove that this is your actual dependent for tax filing purposes. What they'll do after that is they'll reach out to the other party to let them know that the dependent was claimed on someone else's return as well. However, your part is done. But what you don't want to do is ignore the IRS's letter. So providing all those documents to the IRS can help ensure that you're able to file your tax return for the current year.
Very good. Thank you so much for that. Hopefully that clears up a lot for people in that situation. So the final question I have for you is, what if someone owes the IRS? How do they go about that whole process?
What they want to do is file their tax return. If you owe the IRS money, file your tax return and pay it by the April 18th deadline. If you pay it after the April 18th deadline, you could be subject to interest that you will have to pay on the amount that you have due. And then the final tip is you want to look at your withholding. So go to the IRS's website, look at their withholding calculator to see if you have the right amount of taxes that are coming out of your paycheck.
Okay, thank you so much for that wonderful information. I feel like the community should be empowered and prepared to go ahead and file taxes and do it the right way so that you can get the most refund, or that you'll just pay on time and not owe any additional money. So thank you so much for that, Annette. Before we close off, can you please tell our viewers where they can find you?
Absolutely. So they can find me here on YouTube at Harris Financial Coaching, and they can also reach out to me on my website at harriswealthcoach.com.
Very good. Thank you so much. Viewers, please follow Annette, subscribe to her channel, and please leave a comment below, give this video a thumbs up, and subscribe if you haven't. Thank you so much for watching this. And remember, change your mind, change your pocketbook. Bye, Annette. Bye, everybody.